Tonight, Ontario's optometrists rally against the Ford government.
Patients no longer have access to critical health care thanks to Premier Ford's inaction.
Optometrists across the province bring their battle over compensation to Queen's Park, accusing the Ford government of failing to provide a sustainable eye care system. Plus, not guilty of criminal negligence. A judge made the ruling today in the case of the Toronto high school teacher who organized a canoe trip that resulted in the drowning of 15-year-old Jeremiah Perry. And
basically every month I've been told by the brick that my appliances will be coming in the next month.
Many people have been purchasing new appliances during the pandemic, but some say it's taking months, even up to a year, for them to arrive. What's causing the delay? Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Hundreds of optometrists from across Ontario gathered at Queen's Park today, demanding better pay for mandatory care they provide patients under OHIP. Optometrists withdrew provincially insured services, including eye exams for children and seniors, more than a month ago in a funding dispute. As our Greg Ross reports, they say they won't resume care until the Ford government comes up with a more sustainable eye care system.
Fight for sight! Fight for sight!
About 400 Ontario optometrists marching on Queen's Park, some coming from the farthest reaches of the province.
I came from Sault Ste. Marie.
They say this is just their latest effort to try and get the Ford government to pay up.
If the government in Ontario wants to say that they provide eye care services to the public, I think they have to pay the bills for that. It's pretty plain and simple.
Optometrists are required to provide care for people who qualify under the Ontario Health Insurance Plan.
The fees that we're paid to provide eye exams to children and seniors and adults with medical conditions have only changed $5 between 1989 and 2021.
The Ontario Association of Optometrists says the province is currently paying them an average of about $45 per patient, but they say their operating costs are closer to $75 per patient, and they want the government to make them whole. Today, the health minister acknowledged the problem.
They're very relevant concerns to deal with the back pay issue, to deal with an increase going forward, to deal with their overhead.
While the health minister says the province isn't willing to simply write a blank check, all issues were up for negotiation when the two sides met with a mediator in August. Those talks broke off after just 2 days, and now the two sides are blaming each other.
We are unable to come to an agreement, and since then it's been radio silence.
We are ready, willing, and able to go back to the table to discuss, but this is not something that the OAO is interested in doing, and it's especially concerning that they continue to tell the public that they are waiting for us to return to the mediation table.
The province has committed to a one-time payment of $39 million in retroactive costs and to increase reimbursement by about 8.5%. But the OAO says that doesn't even come close to covering their costs. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The Toronto teacher who organized a canoe trip that ended in tragedy has been found not guilty of criminal negligence. Nicholas Mills was a gym teacher at C.W. Jeffries Collegiate Institute in 2017 when he led students on a trip to Algonquin Park that resulted in the drowning of 15-year-old Jeremiah Perry. Ali Chiasson has more on today's decision.
While Ontario Superior Court Justice Maureen Forrestal agreed that Nicholas Mills should have foreseen the risk of letting Jeremiah Perry swim without wearing a life jacket, in her verdict, Justice Forrestal said it was an error in judgment, not criminal negligence. This case goes back to July 2017 when 15-year-old Jeremiah Perry drowned on his school canoe trip at Algonquin Park. Perry was one of many students on the excursion who failed a swim test before the trip, something that was overlooked. Justice Forrestal said if this was a case of civil negligence, the test would be met. This is a criminal case. At trial, Mills testified that he felt comfortable letting Perry swim without a life jacket after demonstrating he could swim 50 meters in shallow water. Unfortunately, on the third day of the trip, a swim spot was chosen for the group that had a steep drop-off into deep water. Justice Forrestal said Mills failed to reassess the risk when the swim spot was chosen that day. Quote, Mr. Mills' failure to reassess the risk was an error of judgment that occurred within a time period of about 1 hour. It was then and there that Perry slipped under the water, going unnoticed by Mills and the 17-year-old lifeguard on duty. Police divers found Perry's body the following day in Big Trout Lake. The judge characterizes Mills' actions as careless, but not reckless disregard. Quote, "It does not reach the level of moral blameworthiness necessary for criminal liability." She handed down the not guilty verdict this morning. For the last 4 years, Mills has been placed on unpaid leave from the TDSB, which issued a statement late this afternoon expressing condolences and that they've made changes. Quote, "We further strengthened our requirements 4 years ago around water-based activities, including mandatory principal sign-off on swim test results and the sharing of all results with parents or guardians prior to any activity taking place." Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government announced today mandatory COVID-19 vaccination for several groups of people, including travelers.
And if you haven't gotten your shots yet but want to travel this winter, let's be clear. There will only be a few extremely narrow exceptions, like a valid medical condition.
All would-be travelers must be fully vaccinated by October 30th to board planes, trains, or marine vessels. Airline and rail employees will also need to be vaccinated, so will federal public servants. They have until the end of the month to self-declare their vaccination status. Otherwise, they'll be put on leave without pay. Trudeau said these steps will ensure that a minority of people don't jeopardize the country's economic recovery. It's now been 2 weeks since the launch of Ontario's vaccine passport system. And while there has been some pushback from the public to the new requirements, it appears the program has succeeded in getting more people vaccinated. Our Jessica Ng has more.
So far, the signs are good, that people are feeling comfortable, people are being compliant.
Eric Joyel is the president of Ascari Hospitality Group. They own 3 upscale restaurants and a bar in the city, as well as retail and catering operations. He says at this location on King West, the atmosphere has changed considerably since the province's vaccine certificates became mandatory for many indoor activities.
The vibe is similar to what you would expect in normal times. I think it gives me a sense of cautious optimism.
And a sense of normalcy, something they've been looking for as the restaurant only opened 9 months before the pandemic hit.
Joyel says the biggest difference for customers and staff is the extra bit of time it takes to check in and check vaccine passports at the front, especially on busier nights. But business has remained steady.
We do face a few challenges, but I think the trade-off is well worth it.
But not everybody is happy with the new rules. Hone Fitness has 7 gyms. The company's Isabella Street location has 3,000 members alone.
5% have wanted to quit or be frozen.
Jim Solomon says those who stayed, as well as staff, tell him they feel better being in the building.
Personally, I think it's safer, and I think it's got everybody a little calmer who are within the 4 walls of the gyms.
Mayor John Tory says the city received 300 complaint calls relating to vaccine passports early on, but there were no significant issues.
There have been very few of these incidents involving people being aggressive or intimidating, and I hope it stays that way. That's the Toronto way of doing these things.
What has grown is the number of people getting vaccinated, especially 18 to 29-year-olds. A day before the vaccine passport announcement, 75% of Ontarians in this age group had at least 1 dose. Now it's nearing 81% across the province, with close to 95% just in Toronto. It's good news for the city and for businesses.
There is still a large segment of the population that's not prepared to dine out at all, but we're finding ways to make it through.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, we did get a few sunny breaks today, not too many, but I'll take them.
Yeah, it was so nice. So those areas that were just really socked in the cloud cover, it did take a lot longer, including downtown. But once the sun kind of was breaking through, we're getting some of those breaks. Beautiful conditions. Nicer a little further north, like north of the 407, there was much more sunshine throughout the day, but it has been pretty difficult to get through the cloud deck, and we're going to see redevelopment tonight of some patchy fog, so reduced visibility. Daytime highs, you did a little bit better in a few of the spots where there was a little more sunshine in there, and also it was dependent a bit on the winds with the lakes. But as we look through the overnight hours, not only do we see that fog, but you see that wants to put some precipitation in here. Really, this is just some of the moisture in the air. It tends to be the form of a bit of drizzle or mist at times that we sometimes get. As we go through the day on Thursday into the later afternoon, we could see some nice sunny breaks. Otherwise, it is going to be mostly cloudy in terms of what we're seeing. And in fact, late tomorrow, we'll have some rain showers pushing into southwestern Ontario. So be aware of that in the Windsor area. Overnight tonight, 15 though, mild there and mild tomorrow with that high of 21, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Ontario's top doctor says medical exemptions from COVID-19 vaccine requirements should be extremely rare. Yet, among Premier Doug Ford's own MPPs, 2 have exemptions, and that is prompting questions at the legislature. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the story.
11 million people in this province have rolled up their sleeves for a shot of a COVID-19 vaccine. To get a medical exemption to the vaccines, Ontario's top public health doctor says there are only 2 legitimate reasons, and both conditions are quite rare. Severe allergic reactions to the vaccines are seen in 1 in every 100,000 people, and there's a risk of heart inflammation in up to 5 in every 100,000 people.
And so roughly, if you put those calculations together, we should be seeing medical exemptions at the risk of around 1 to 5 per 100,000.
Among Doug Ford's 70-member PC caucus, 2 have been exempted. Opposition MPPs wonder what's going on.
That's peculiar. That's odd.
It's curious. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let's put it that way.
In question period, the New Democrats pressed the issue.
Can the Premier help explain the statistical anomaly in his own caucus?
I find it pretty rich when the leader of the NDP should recognize that considering her own position evolves day to day depending on which way the wind blows.
The Conservative MPPs who've been granted the exemptions are Christina Mitas, who represents Scarborough Centre, and Lindsay Park from the riding of Durham. PC officials say the exemptions were provided by medical professionals.
We were very transparent, Mr. Speaker, on the people that had a medical exemption. We don't get involved in people's personal medical records.
It speaks to the lack of honesty, perhaps, the lack of leadership that this Premier is showing in terms of verification of exemptions.
The Chief Medical Health Officer says vaccine exemptions are showing up among the general public more often than necessary. He says doctors and nurse practitioners have been told they should only be granted in very limited circumstances. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
The province is putting more money into long-term care homes. Long-term care minister Rod Phillips announced today a $270 million investment to homes across the province beginning next month. Money that will be used to hire more PSWs and nurses.
Residents currently receive on average 2 hours and 45 minutes of daily care from nurses and PSWs. This funding I'm announcing today will increase the daily average to at least 3 hours per resident per day by the end of March.
Students are getting training on caring for residents in long-term care homes. He visited the campus's training labs, meeting with students. The province's 2020 budget put aside $4.9 billion to improve long-term care.
We learned a lot for the past 2 years because of the pandemic. And each room actually has its own independent HVAC system. So in terms of infection control, that will be very good because if there's anything happened, we can actually stop or avoid or reduce the chance of infection.
The GTA has a new long-term care home. The Monsoon home in Whitchurch Stouffville started admitting residents today. The not-for-profit home has more than 300 long-term care beds. It offers culturally appropriate services for the Chinese community. Construction of the facility took nearly 3 years.
I've had to go into the store numerous times to kind of follow up what was going on.
Our demand is up and our supply has been crippled.
After the break, details on why you could be waiting for months if you're in the market for new appliances. Stay with us. Welcome back. Toronto police are thanking the public for their help in identifying a man wanted in a prowl-by-night investigation in Leslieville. Investigators released security video of the suspect. They say he has tried to get into a number of homes in the Dundas East and Leslie Street area. The attempted break-ins have happened in the evening and early hours of the morning. Police have now identified the man as 40-year-old Gerard Silas Purcell of no fixed address. He is now wanted for 2 counts of attempt break and enter, 2 counts of prowl by night, and 1 count of criminal harassment. Police are asking anyone who sees him to contact them. The family of a missing Thornhill woman is hoping the public can help find 59-year-old Elaine Lee. She was last seen leaving her home on September 29th around 4:45 in the afternoon. Families say Lee left all of her personal belongings, including cell phone, keys, and her wallet. Police don't suspect foul play in her disappearance and are concerned about Lee feeling stressed in her work life. They say she knows the Toronto area well and grew up in the High Park neighborhood. Anyone who knows Lee's whereabouts is asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. And we have an update tonight about a serial tenant who turned a dozen single-family homes in the GTA into illegal rooming houses last year. Arif Adnan Syed is now facing 12 more fraud-related charges in connection to new rentals. The serial tenant was arrested by York Regional Police yesterday. Syed was already before the courts on 17 other charges related to alleged fraudulent rental applications for the homes he turned into rooming houses last year. Now, none of the charges against Syed have been proven in court. People purchasing new appliances during the pandemic are reporting long waits for their fridges and stoves to arrive. And some say the wait has lasted a full year. Talia Ricci has more on the worsening situation with product delays, shortages, and rising prices.
When these 2 customers went shopping for appliances at the Brick at the end of 2020, they weren't expecting to still be waiting for their fridges nearly a year later.
I've had to go into the store numerous times to kind of follow up what was going on.
We paid quite a bit of money for this fridge, which has not shown up.
And is still listed for sale online, he says. The Retail Council of Canada says COVID outbreaks in different countries can severely impact the global supply chain. This professor says other challenges include a hot housing market and recovering from lockdowns.
When you stop ordering products, such as appliances or the components that go into those appliances, the people that make those things find other things to do with their factories. Or they do things such as lay off employees and not order materials, and it takes time to restart those.
Our demand is up and our supply has been crippled by parts delays.
Best Brand Appliance in North York is telling its customers to hold on to their appliances during renovations.
Don't throw them out. Don't give them away to your aunts and uncles and cousins. Don't put them on Kijiji. Keep them in your garage. And so once your kitchen's completed, that's your backup, because sadly, dates are not accurate.
He says they're working as hard as they can to keep up, but he's also encouraging customers to be patient with everyone in the industry.
Our competition is struggling. We're struggling. Our suppliers are struggling.
Whirlpool Corporation in Maytag said its plants have experienced a few brief interruptions in production related to the pandemic, including component or material shortages, but says they're working hard to meet consumers' needs.
The Brick did not respond to CBC's request for comment. Retailers and business experts are estimating that things should improve in 2022, but those waiting for appliances now are frustrated.
The most frustrating piece is that there's no accountability.
The Ministry of Government and Consumer Services said under the Consumer Protection Act, when a customer orders a product or service, it must be delivered within 30 days of the delivery date. And if it's not, they have the right to cancel the agreement at any time before the product is delivered. But for Saleh, it's not worth the price tag.
I can cancel the order, so that is an option, but it's probably at least 30% more expensive to do because prices have gone up.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Partly cloudy this evening, becoming clear overnight. Temperatures below seasonal. Currently, it is 16 degrees in the city. All right, let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, temperature is pretty mild for October so far.
Yeah, they really are, Kelda. I mean, we are talking about, as we look forward through the next 5-7 days, that the overnight lows especially, they're not very fall-like. We aren't having those crisp morning temperatures, are we? In fact, the overnight lows are going to be running 5-10 degrees above seasonal, and the daytime highs tomorrow about 5 degrees above seasonal. So we're really ahead of the game with the temperature story. So I know maybe you've been wanting some more sun, folks, but we're doing well in some areas there. Overnight areas of patchy fog once again with reduced visibility there. And just trying to help you look forward towards the holiday weekend. Saturday is looking like the wetter day of the weekend, although there's a few other spots where we'll have some wet conditions and kind of off and on. So that's the day I'd be making the plans about what are you going to do if you're indoors, okay? Just looking forward at some of the cloud cover, that low cloud deck, a bit of mist in there with some of the areas picking up some of the fog, a lot of cloud cover back into southwestern Ontario, but tomorrow we'll see some sunny breaks. Those are going to be harder to come by traveling back from London towards Windsor. However, in the afternoon we should get some there all around the GTA, perhaps a little fewer as you go around towards St. Catharines and the Niagara region there. Late day Thursday we get the rain showers pushing into Windsor up towards Sarnia as well, lingering into Friday morning, and in fact that day is going to be a kind of off and on day with some showers but then some sunny breaks, that sort of thing. It does look like for Toronto we're not going to be seeing the rain until probably late Friday. I'm talking Friday night into Saturday morning. So Friday, still some cloud cover in there, but it's actually looking a little bit better than it had been. Temperatures tonight, look at these in southwestern Ontario. Those could be daytime highs or this time of year, really. And tomorrow we could see some spikes with a little bit more sunshine there towards Sarnia. And Sarnia there feeling like 32 to 35 with the humidex. Here you go tonight around the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe right through to St. Catharines, some low 20s coming your way. Looking ahead, though, at that holiday weekend, a chance of showers into Sunday and a slimmer one into Monday, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette.
The weather update is brought to you by Train. We test, so it runs. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
The Toronto Blue Jays didn't get to enjoy much October baseball this year, but the offseason is just beginning. General Manager Ross Atkins is turning his attention to growing the team and making it stronger.
From a team building standpoint, we're just constantly trying to be more balanced and more versatile, and that just doesn't happen overnight.
3 hit an infield hit back in the first. 3-2. Simeon rockets it. An absolute no-doubter going into the 200 level. Number 40.
Several key players from this season's roster are now free agents. That includes Marcus Simeon, who's coming off a career-best year with 45 home runs. Robbie Ray also enters free agency. Atkins says discussions are ongoing with both players about their future. And that's our show for you tonight. Have a great night, everyone.